Good evening. My name is Juan Zavala, and I'm Vice President for University Advancement at Lamar University. Due to social distancing, we're not able to get together with our friends and alumni and donors of Lamar University. So we've started the digital gatherings on a weekly basis for all of us to get together and have a moment to talk about Lamar and the impact that Lamar has in our community. We're well aware of the fact that so many of us are suffering from the impacts of COVID-19. Our hearts and prayers are with those of you who are suffering either with illnesses or from the economic impact, and we wish you the very best. We're also very proud of our alumni and friends who are on the front lines, who are helping the rest of us to get through this. What we've done for these digital alumni learnings is we've asked some of our distinguished alumni to take the time out of their schedule to speak with us and talk about their career and about how they got there. Tonight, you're extremely fortunate that we've convinced our friend Sina Nejad to be on the program. Sina has 3 degrees from Lamar University, a bachelor's, a master's, and his doctoral degree in engineering. He is one of only 20 engineers in the state of Texas who's authorized by the Board of Architecture Examiners to be an accepted engineer approved to engage in the practice of architecture in the state of Texas. Recently, Sina was asked by the governor to chair the Texas Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, a group of some 70,000 professionals across the state. Sina founded his corporation, Sigma Engineer, in 1993. Among the many things that he does, and hopefully we'll talk about some of those tonight, is investigations into large catastrophic structural failures. He's one of the few corporations in the entire world who does blast resistance building design. And again, we hope to talk to him about that more. He is involved in every aspect of our community here locally and across the state. We're most fortunate that he, as a distinguished alumnus, has agreed to be a member of the Lamar University Foundation Board of Trustees, where he served as president recently. Sina, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, good afternoon. I'm really proud to be here. Thank you for asking me to. Like you said, these are difficult times for everybody, and everybody has to make adjustments. And I'm really proud that Lamar University is creating a venue where folks can be involved with the affairs of university, and also to hear from some of us that have gone through Lamar.
Right. Well, speaking of those of you who have gone through Lamar, Sina, would you give all of us a sense of how it is that Sina Nejad ended up at Lamar, and now how you have ended up with this pretty extraordinary career?
Well, I'll tell you, it's kind of a long story, but I'll make it very, very short. I came to the States back in, I think, 1977, yeah. And went to school in Colorado, and then ended up from Colorado to Oklahoma. And I had a fairly nice, quiet life in Oklahoma. And a lot of my friends from high school, they were going to school in Alvin Junior College. And nobody could figure out how they ended up in Alvin, but that's another story. And I was kind of lonely, so every weekend I'll come and see them in Houston. So after a while, they convinced me to move to Houston. They said, "Oh, well, look, we found a really nice school here, and why don't you, rather than driving back and forth, come and move down, and we're all going to go to University of Houston." So I thought, gosh, it's going to be another 2 years of school, so why not? And I'll get to be with my friends. Took all my belongings, put them in the back of the new Camaro that I had. It was an ugly green, but it served its purpose. And drove all the way to Houston. We met up in a bar about 8:30 at night, and I'm kind of looking at them, and there's 5 or 6 of them, and they all have this really mischievous look on their face. And I said, something was up. I said, "Okay, guys, what is going on? Something must have went wrong." And they said, "Oh, no. We have some really good news and a little bit of bad news." So I said, "Okay, what's the really good news?" The really good news was that we're going to have a 3-month-long party. And kind of like, how is that calculating in our equation? I said, "Well, the bad news is we forgot, and the registration at the University of Houston was completed a week ago, and we told you wrong. It's not next week, it was a week ago." So now we have 3 months of partying, and then we'll go to school. And I said, no, this is not going to work. I'm going back to Oklahoma. And they're all looking at me. We ordered another drink, and one of them said, well, Sina, we knew you were going to say that. Of course, I knew these guys. We went to high school together. I've saved their lives many a times, and there was another occasion to do something noble. So they said, we knew you're going to say that. So we found another little school about 80 miles away, and they registered next week. We're going to go down there. We're going to spend the semester. Then we're going to come back and go back to University of Houston. So the next day, we all get in the car and drive to Beaumont. And that was it. I registered at the school, and we started school at Lamar. It wasn't long before the first semester's over, and we finished. I said, okay, boys, what are we doing? We're going back to University of Houston. Oh, no. We all made bad grades, and we all have to stay here and make up for it. And I'm like, okay. So before I knew it, I was graduating from school, and they all quit. They all quit to other businesses, and I was the only one left here, and with an engineering degree. Then, of course, I really like the place. It's a nice, comfortable place. Really nice people. Texans are extremely nice, even though when you go around the world, Texans might not have the reputation of being really friendly because they're just rough and tough people. But you find some of the nicest, kindest, politest people in Texas. And I made this my home. I went to graduate school and started working. And all of a sudden, just got a house and brought my sisters over, put them through school, and became a Beaumonter.
and got 2 more degrees along the way.
And got 2 more degrees, and started getting involved in the community. And I tell you, in my almost 40 years, I have really, truly enjoyed being here. I think that we have a great community. I think we have great opportunities for just about anybody around, and it's a good place to raise a family.
Excellent. Well, and you are really, you and your wife and your children are very involved in your communities, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. But I want to hear a little bit, or some amount, about Sigma Engineers. Some of the work that you do is just so fascinating. So can you tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you're working in now, and why that takes you around the world so frequently?
Oh, absolutely. We have a very unique company. And in our company, we have a great group of people that are working with me. And our specialty is working for the industry and petrochemical. And one of the very interesting niche that we have is designing blast-resistant buildings. And of course, with all the refineries that we have around here at petrochemical, there is quite a bit of need for that. For the longest time, doing blast-resistant buildings was something that nobody ever talked about or was familiar with. But after 9/11, this thing became very important. But going back to the original issue with blast-resistant buildings was that in the refineries and petrochemical, they have processes that require very high temperature, very high pressure equipment that is working all the time. And God forbid, if something goes wrong and there is a small leak somewhere, there is a vapor cloud, and vapor cloud sooner or later finds a source of ignition, and there you go. Unfortunately, you have a bad explosion. But again, I need to tell our folks that we are so fortunate that in the United States, we have such great safety record and such fine rules and regulations on how to deal with chemicals and how to protect people, that the rate of accidents are probably the lowest anywhere. Even though, unfortunately, we not too long ago, we had an explosion in one of the nearby plants. But when you look at it, There was no fatality. There were some injuries, but if that would have happened somewhere else, there probably would have been a lot of fatalities in relation to the blast. But what we do is we design buildings that would protect people from these events. And a lot of people think that blast-proof buildings, and there is no such a thing as blast-proof building. These are blast-resistant, because blast-resistant and blast-proof is all in relation with the amount of the pressure that is released. And what we do is we take this building to its very minute, small pieces, and we design every small piece to take the load, and it'll absorb the energy and safely pass the energy through the building and from the other side, and trying to keep the people safe. We might have the building damaged. We might have the roof membrane blowing away. We might have a canopy dislodging. We might have a door bending. But at the same time, we keep people safe and keep the structure from catastrophic failures, so people would be safe.
Excellent. Well, and talking about a place to settle, you and I have both settled in this community. For your type of work, it's an extraordinarily varied community for you to do that kind of work. And you and I have a friend in common, Tim, who just asked on the feed to talk about your experience with American Valve and Hydrant. And you and I know that's funny because Tim is the president of American Valve and Hydrant, but it does give you an opportunity to work with a lot of local companies that are in the same type of industry than the kind that you work in, right?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I want to say hello to Tim. Tim is a dear friend, and he is no less than myself. He is involved in our community quite a bit. But I did work for American Valve and Hydrant. Tim and I both worked for a gentleman named Bill Delaney. He was a great, great mentor. I left American Valve, and Tim and I worked there about 3 months together, and then right after that, I left and worked for another company, and Tim stayed. And of course, obviously, he became the president of American Valve and Hydrant. The experience was fantastic. What I did is I was the second degree engineer in the plant. We had our plant engineer and myself, and we designed stuff. We give them to the mechanics and to the construction guys on the side at the site. They build it, and then we got to see the fruit of our work. And it was really interesting. I really enjoyed working at American Valve and Hydrant.
Well, so okay, we've plugged Tim's company enough. Let me let me ask you another question, Sina. And one of our other viewers, Uliana, asked if the kind of work that you're doing for blast resistance, does that also then extend to natural disaster impacts like hurricanes?
Absolutely. Pressures, high event pressures from an explosion, an earthquake, high winds, they all work, unfortunately, on structures that we build. So the hurricanes have terrible bad effects on buildings that are not built properly. And we design buildings to resist this type of load. A lot of new building codes have dictate that buildings are built, especially in our area. For example, we live in a windstorm area, which I think is the 13 coastal counties of Texas. Buildings have to be built by using different requirements to keep them safe during hurricanes. And again, fortunately, you can see that in the last few years, we really haven't had people getting hurt during hurricanes unless it was from the rising water and the flood. But the wind did not cause a lot of damage.
Excellent. Well, now, speaking of all of this, Sina, one of the things we know about you and your company is you do a lot of sort of forensic investigation for catastrophic failures around the world. So tell us the kinds of things that you're called on to investigate, to discover in your professional practice.
Well, the first thing people need to know not all engineers could be called geeks, and engineering is not a boring profession. We have so much fun doing what we do. It's rarely I do the same thing twice in a day. And the folks that help me here in this office, uh, they are involved in all different types of work. We have been on a lot of explosions. I'm not sure if you knew or not, but I am licensed in 2 provinces in Canada. So we work all the way to a very northern part of Canada, and then we work in Mexico and all over the United States. Unfortunately, we get called to a lot of explosions and a lot of mishaps. In Mexico City, for example, 39 people perished in the twin towers that they have. In Mexico City, back in the late 70s or early 70s, the Pemex is a national petroleum company, built two high rises. And a few years ago, one of those high rises exploded, and we were called to investigate that explosion. What we do, and what my staff does with me, we look at the structure, how is damaged, how is demolished, and we do the reverse engineering and try to figure out where that failure started, and the location of the failure most likely would determine the location of either the blast or an explosion or a gas leak or whatever happened to that structure. It's unfortunate that people get hurt in some of these incidents, but I have been to, for example, Bermuda, where nobody got hurt. A lot of buildings got damaged, but I was in beautiful beach sitting out there and looking at beautiful water and looking at some highly priced condos that were demolished due to a gas explosion. At the same time, I have been to Flagstaff, Arizona, where 300 tons of dog food has to be disposed of because there was an explosion at the Purina dog chow factory, and we had to investigate that. And I did not know how finicky dogs are. Apparently, the smallest amount of smoke or residue from explosion would stop the dog from eating the food. So they had to throw away all these foods because they had an explosion in the plant.
Wow,
We
wow.
have people all over the place. One of the latest ones was, as a matter of fact, this would work with our situation. Markel is a paper mill in New Jersey, exploded and caught on fire, and they were one of the largest toilet paper producers in the nation. And unfortunately, 2 years ago, if you remember that terribly bad storm that we had in up north and minus 20-degree temperature, we were called on that fire, and it was 4 city block of frozen toilet paper.
Wow.
And to deal with that and figure out the source of the ignition and the explosion.
Wow.
So we do a lot of exciting stuff, Juan. It's really rewarding.
Well, and along those lines, Sina, another one of our viewers, Karen, has asked, knowing that you're a problem solver by nature, how do you use your engineering skills to help solve challenges in other industries, non-engineering related challenges?
When you go to engineering school, they teach you reasoning. They teach you, obviously, the mechanics of stuff, but you come out with a lot of common sense. Numbers people usually are able to look at a problem, get into the very basic of problem, and don't get distracted by the peripheral stuff that goes around the problem. And I'll be very sincere with you. What we do, as sophisticated as it might look, is really not that difficult. It's you go to school, you have some training, you use common sense, you use the prescribed methods of solving problems, and you come up with a solution. We get called on. I'm a structural engineer by education and by license. We solve water problems for people at times. We solve some other issues that has nothing to do with with what I was originally trained in. And a lot of that is reviewing the problem, stepping back a little bit, looking back into what happened, when did it happen, how did it happen, and then put the two and two together, and we'll come up with a solution. I don't want to say that anybody can walk up there and do it, but I think anybody with some engineering training and with a little bit of common sense can do what we do fairly easy.
And see, during our discussions, you talk about your company and your coworkers, and we do what we do. A lot of the we in this discussion is your family. So you have a family-run business with a really global reach. So Jeff, who's watching this, wants to know about the benefits and challenges of having a family-run business that has such a wide reach.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it does. It's you notice I'm kind of slowing down giving you an answer because you have to be very careful. The challenges are obviously there, but again, as you know, I'm married to the love of my life, Sohaila, and she is a highly educated lady. She went to school in USC and lived in Beverly Hills, California. I married her, and the poor young lady ended up in Beaumont, Texas with me and has been putting up with me for 30 some odd years now. Uh, she started, she came to Beaumont, and I don't know if I told you the story or not. She kept asking me where Beaumont is. And I really didn't. I wanted to upplay this thing, so I said, "Well, Beaumont is a suburb of Houston." And she said, "Well, that's not bad. We're going to be right. I'm moving to Houston. I mean, the suburb of Houston is Houston, right?" She comes down here, and we spend a weekend in Houston, and then we drive and drive and drive and drive. And she kind of said, "You know, Houston's the suburbs are so far apart." But anyway, getting back to the question, she has a degree in special management, and some years ago, we decided that she needs to stay home and help with the kids. She did not want to leave the kids with the nanny. And then a couple of years later, we decided that I really needed help, so she came over and took over our financial side of the business. If you love somebody, you put up with a lot of stuff, and I think both of us love each other very much because my wife and I are literally together 24 hours a day. We're literally here together 24 hours a day. What's really interesting, when we walk in the office, I have my technical side. She has her managerial side. And we don't interact very much unless I do something wrong and I get called to her office. And then, of course, I'll start being really rough, then I'll close the door and beg for forgiveness, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, well, and again, those of us who happen to be fortunate enough to know Sohaila know that who the better half of the team is. Forgive me, Sina. While we were talking, Sina, a couple of people have asked about professionals like you getting involved in their profession. Joanne worded it in such a way, she wants to know why you think it's important for a professional to be involved in advancing the profession. You've taken the leadership role as chair of the Texas Board of Professional Examiners and Land Surveyors, a huge draw on your time. So why do you make decisions to help your profession in that way?
Well, look, before I was appointed to the Board of Engineers, I know you knew this. I was on 8 different boards, 8 of them. Usually there are a lot of people who are in 1 board, 2 boards, maybe 3 boards. Before I was even appointed to the Board of Engineers, which is, like you said, is very demanding, I was a member of 8 different boards. And on these boards, in most of them, I stayed there long and I served, and I went to the leadership of those boards. Uh, as you know, I'm some geeky engineer. I was on the board of Symphony. I became the president of Symphony. I can carry a tune in a bucket. But again, is the common sense approach, is your managerial ability, and the fact that you want to give to your community. I always tell people, if I don't do this, how are my children going to learn to do what I do? And that is very important. Americans are one of the greatest people in the world. Americans give to their society and to their cities and to their communities as much as they can. And I think everybody should. We as engineers, we have a lot of good technical background and we can really help our communities. So that's why I chose to be involved in these things.
Um,
Obviously, you know, the highest paying one was Lamar University, and I know how much I got paid for being the
well, you can
the
joke about that because
board of a foundation.
yeah, we can joke about that because you know how heavily I relied on your advice and guidance when you were there. So yeah, you were dramatically underpaid for your time.
Well,
Yeah,
look, but we did great work. We still do great work. We help a lot of students. I am on the planning. I'm the chair of the planning and zoning. We help a lot of people in town. In the board of engineers, we help 67,000 engineers in the state of Texas. We're the third largest engineering community in the nation. So that is very important. You have to give of yourself for your community. Community gave to us. I have the opportunity to have Sigma engineers. I have the opportunity to become Sina Nejad in this community, and I have to give back to my community, and I'll be glad. I'm doing it gladly.
well, and speaking of times when you start to put your money, your time where your mouth is, I should be addressing you as Dr. Nejad. You've received multiple degrees from Lamar, including a doctoral degree that you didn't really need to promote your practice because you were already pretty successful. You do a lot of things so that people around you understand the value of doing those things, including education. So why is education so important to you as a professional?
Oh my goodness! I tell you what, lack of education is the worst enemy of humankind. Why do you think we have regions of the world that we call third world countries? It's because the level of education is not as much. Education is the only thing that would raise you, it would make you grow, and it would deliver you to a better position in life. And I have a daughter that's in medical school. She's going to be there for a long time to come. I have a son that has two bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And education is extremely important. And I really, really get very disappointed when there are people that say, oh, I'm just going to go finish high school and go work and do something else and I'm going to make more money. I made very little money compared to some of my friends that were working in bars when I had my first engineering job. But again, I made something of myself, became somebody in the community, and I was able to raise a great family.
So along those same lines, you are known to give advice when people ask, because those of us who ask you for advice know that you're willing to give it. But one of our listeners this evening, his name is Drew. Drew wants to know, what is the best career advice that you've ever received?
Do what you enjoy doing, and find an educational avenue to do what you do. I had a really good friend of mine. He loves fishing, And when he was in high school, that's all he did. He wanted to fish. And then all of a sudden he said, wait a minute, I love this thing so much and I'm so intrigued by my fishing reel. So he went to school and became a mechanical engineer. I mean, it sounds odd, but this guy has patented some highly sophisticated rods and reels, and that's just because he loved fishing and he was interested in it. I love engineering. I love putting things together, and that's why I've ended up being where I ended up in engineering. The advice that I have to give to people is you follow your passion. It might not be in engineering. It might be in money, accounting, investment. It might be in medicine. It might be in some science, laboratory work. Follow your passion. Make sure that you attach the educational component to your passion, because a lot of things you might, like this fellow, when he becomes 70 years old, I'll bet you he's not going to be on the lake every day, but he still has his education and he still has his patents and he has his name plastered all over the place for being the inventor of such a rod and reel or whatever that he did. So you have to follow your passion and have the educational component attached to that passion.
Thank you. Along those lines, Ian, Sina, Shannon, who you and I know really well, she's the one who's actually putting all these programs together for us. Shannon remembers that when you hosted that dinner and conversation, and for those who don't know, this is where our really successful alumni come back to campus and they have dinner with 10 students and talk about their field. And during one of those times, you encountered a young man named Devin who went off to build a career based on your advice. So first of all, do you know where Devin is? But secondly, can you tell us about your experience dealing with young students who have questions about the career and about their career choices?
Oh yes, yes. I'll tell you what, we probably have more interns in our office than anybody else. We love to have younger kids here, and some of those kids have joined our firm. Devin, that you just mentioned, he is one of our really good partners here, and he came to dinner with 12 strangers. If you weren't there, but Dr. Our dean of engineering was there, and there were 11 kids, and the 12th one was Devin. He comes in late, and anyway, the reason I say that is there's a reason I'll come to in a second. So we had dinner, and I was talking about what I do during the day, the different things that we get involved as a professional engineer, and everybody was real cordial. We had dinner. That Sohaila made a really great dinner, and they all enjoyed it and left. But 6 months later, I get a phone call, and it's Devin, and he goes, "Well, Mr. Nejad, I am the fellow that was at your house at the dinner," and I'm thinking who he was. And then he said, "I'm the one who came in late." So that kind of I remembered him. And he said, "Look, I have 3 different job offers from some really big companies, engineering companies, but I'd like to join your firm." And I'll kind of ask him, "Well, why?" He said, "Because I heard that in big engineering companies, you get pigeonholed and you do the same thing over and over. And with your company, I'm going to be doing a lot of different stuff. And I wish we could get him on the phone right now, and he would attest that he's like me. He doesn't do the same thing twice in a day, and he's been very successful. And I'm very proud of him. Beside him, you have to know that we have a great team of people. We have people, young gentlemen that joined our firm a long time ago. Corey Rawls, for example, he's been with us 26 years. And this company is only 27 years old. So Devin's been with us 15 years. So we hire people, we value them, and we'll take care of them, and they take care of us, and we'll stay together.
That's excellent. So, Sina, I want to go back now. I do want to acknowledge we're getting a lot of questions because you're talking about education, you're talking about
You're
careers.
getting a lot of questions, so there are other people other than you and I on this thing, right?
Yeah, you and I have a couple of friends, and so that's no. We've got a large number of people tuning in. Several of them, and I want to acknowledge Elizabeth Jeffrey and a couple of others who have Deborah, who have asked questions about getting an education. And to those of y'all, we will reach out to you individually and give you information about questions about degree plans and degree ideas. But I want to go back to something that you led with early on, and that's a commitment to your community. And the way that you and I first became acquainted is we were on a board of a local organization, a community service organization, United Way of Beaumont,
Yeah.
years ago. So you're on a lot of boards. Can you tell us a little bit about your sense of giving back to your community and why that would be valuable to somebody building a career or somebody like you who's in a pretty well-established career?
Well, look, we are so fortunate that we have people all over America that give up themselves to these boards and organizations. We probably have one of the highest rates of volunteerism in United States than anywhere else. People are involved in just about every aspect of their community, and we don't see a lot of that because a lot of them, like myself, you don't advertise those things. But again, if you don't give, who else is going to? And again, I'll repeat the same thing that I said before to you. My reasoning is first of all, nothing is for free. Nothing should be free. You take advantage of what the community gives you. You give back to that community, and at the same time, again, I'll repeat myself. My thoughts were, if I don't do this stuff, how are my children going to learn to do it? And that's the reason. But it is rewarding. For example, we have, as you know, we have Nejad House here in Beaumont. Nejad House is kind of like the local Ronald McDonald House, and we have built a house which my company donated the engineering services, and we also managed the construction and built the house. And we have room for folks that have their loved ones in the local hospitals. You just picture this in your mind. There's a car traveling down I-10 from Michigan. There's a family of 6 or 7 that didn't have a job in Michigan, and they wanted to come to Texas and find a job. They're traveling on I-10. They get near Beaumont, have an accident. Mom dies, dad is mangled up, and they end up in the hospital. And the survivors have no place to stay. They have no food to eat. We provide that to them, and it's all for free. And we support these people. One of our mutual friends that's with us right now, Tim, is on the board of directors with me. So these are the things that are really rewarding. You go home and you think about these things. I'll give you a very, very short story. At Nejad House, we get a letter one day, and it's a check with the letter for about like $1,800 from a young lady. She's 19 years old. She writes that her grandfather had cancer from Coons. He comes here and stays with us. He passes away. To his name, he had $3,000. She takes $1,200 of that, buries the gentleman, and writes a check for the other $1,800 to Nejad House because we helped her grandfather. So how satisfying is that? That just brings tears to your eyes. But when you see stuff like that, you know that what you do is valuable and you're helping your community. And also, you have to set an example for other folks. There should be people who do the good deeds so they can set an example for the rest of us in the community.
Thank you. While you were talking, you just need to know that Devin has sent us a message on Facebook. He's great. He gave you a very nice shout out. He's grateful for your mentorship. So Devin, we're glad you're joining us. Let me ask you this. Several people are asking about degrees, Sina, and so let me ask you this question that Suhaib has presented. Based on your experience, would you recommend getting a PhD in a degree field, something like project management or structural engineering?
The engineering has a lot to do with how you put your education into practice. There are people with a bachelor's degree who are extremely successful in their business, and there are people, unfortunately, with a couple of PhDs that are really haven't been able to be as practical or as active as they should have been in their business. So what I say is any level of education is important, but with the laws the way they're going, you really cannot call yourself an engineer unless you have at least a bachelor's degree, you pass your PE exam, and you have the proper experience to become a professional engineer. I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but in the state of Texas, just like a lot of other states, you cannot call yourself an engineer or use the word engineer or engineering without having a license in engineering. So that's very important. Not only is it important for you to finish your education, you need to pursue your professional route and become a professional engineer to be able to really put that education to full use.
All right. Thank you, Sina. Now, going along that line, I have to tell you that, and you and I discussed this beforehand, you and I talk so well together that the time can fly very quickly. We're nearing the end of our discussion, so I'd like to leave some time here at the end for you to talk about what you see in the future of the profession. Yeah, being as the chair of the board of professional engineers and land surveyors, and then again the kinds of work that you do, what are you seeing? What do you envision in the future of engineering? What are some of the exciting or challenging things that you see coming forward?
All right. Before I say that, you might have to ask the question again, but I want to acknowledge some of the other folks that we have from Lamar University. We've hired some great people from Lamar Engineering School, and as a matter of fact, not too long ago, we hired another young gentleman, Sohaib. He is a graduate. He has a master's degree from Lamar University, and he is working with us now. So I want you to know that we try as hard as we can to make sure that we hire Lamar graduates, and we're not prejudiced. But again, we have a really soft spot in our heart for Lamar graduates, just because I know Lamar trains good people. And I'll tell you that from my own experience, the very first day I went to work, I felt absolutely no deficiency in my education. And I started working and I started doing engineering work the very first day I went to work. So now, what was the question?
Let me go back and say that your bias is both well placed and appreciated. We understand why you have this bias toward Lamar graduates, and we know that they are in their place. But I'm just wondering what you see of interest on the horizon in your industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Challenges.
Forgive me for interrupting you. There is great potential for engineering in the United States. Right now, we are importing engineers from other countries. Texas Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors is one of the only boards that has international agreements with other countries such as Japan, Saudi Arabia. We're negotiating with Spain. We are exporting our education system and our licensing to these folks, and we license them in their own home country. Then we allow them to work here. So there's great potentials for engineering in Texas and all over the United States. People come here all the time, every day to do engineering, and we hire people from out of the country just because we have such a shortage of engineers. Engineering, it is an extremely good field to be in, with the way the economy is moving, with the way the industry is moving. COVID-19 is going to be gone. We are suffering, we have to change our way of living. But I promise you, when this thing's gone and things are going to be skyrocketing again, and engineering is going to be one of the fields that's going to take people places.
All right. Thank you, Sina. And I do. You inadvertently you answered the question of several people like Deborah and Jeffrey and Sahib who ask about degrees. And for those of us, I'm going to say Dr. Nejad said go to Lamar and get your degree. That's what the answer is. Sina, thank you for taking the time. We know you're extraordinarily busy, and you're a good friend to this university, and every time we call on you, you say yes. So a little bit, this is your fault. But I want you to know how much we appreciate your taking the time, and thank you for being a part of our digital alumni and friends gathering.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm proud to be here. One of my proudest moments in life was for me to address the commencement ceremony at Lamar with the engineering school. And Lamar has a great place in our life and my heart and my family. And for your viewers, those people who didn't understand the word I said, you might want to give them an English translation in writing, so at least they can go back and read it.
Well, okay. For all honestly, we're closed captioning it, so there you go. You and I. I'm known for my speed talking, so that helps.
Well, anyway, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And to close this out, Daniel, you and I both know the amount of work that Daniel does behind the scenes on this. Daniel is going to replay the ad with which we led this program. Thank you, Sina, and thank you for everybody for being involved, and have a good evening. Good night.
I want to help people.
I want to be a part of the solutions of tomorrow.
I want to bring innovations in times of need.
I want to turn my passion for helping others into action.
I want to be the voice that shares truth with the world.
In times of uncertainty, being a nurse is how I will make a difference.
My professors have taught me human resources is about putting people first.
Through the power of mechanical engineering, I've learned how to better the world around me.
Because of Lamar University, I've been given the opportunity to change my world.
To change our world.
Our moment is here.
Our moment is now.
Make the most of it at Lamar University.